What's up, podcast listeners? It is your host, Rafal Matuszewski, and this is Cut the Shit, Get Fit for another edition of me driving in my car while recording a podcast and filming it at the same time. So for all those people who like to watch me talk and have these car sessions instead of listening to me on a podcast platform, here you go. I don't even know where I was going with that, but I need to do some shout outs before I start. My home city that I currently reside in of Langley, BC has been beat by all the way in Arizona, a city of Phoenix. Shout out to everyone in Phoenix listening to my show. Super cool. I've been to Arizona a bunch of times for different conferences. Super awesome. And number 3, still on the top charts, is that city in France that starts with an M that I mispronounce all the freaking time, so I apologize. But here we are. Today's podcast is going to be an interesting one. Sorry, guys. Some people have like really weird stuff when they drive. Like, they just have no like self-awareness of what's happening in the world besides themselves, and then they translate that over to their driving capabilities. But anyway, this show's not about complaining about traffic, because who the fuck cares about that? What I want to talk about today is a few things. The first thing that kind of riled me up earlier this week was I had an individual reach out to me over Instagram to get on to my show. And anytime I, get coaches or fitness people trying to get on my show, I'm kind of weary about, because I physically didn't take the time to research them or get a recommendation from one of my podcast listeners or one of my guests that I would trust. And out of the 3 years of podcasting and having people reach out to me, only one person came out to be a good interview, and that was Stacy Dawkins. And like one of the best interviews I had. Like, I had no idea who she was. I looked her up. She's been in the yoga industry for 30 years. We had an awesome chat. Loved it. But all the other times where I've opened up my DM on Instagram and there's this person saying that they're a leading expert in X, Y, and Z, and they want to share their story on my podcast, I get a little like, let's see about that. So most recently, I had this individual reach out to me, wanted to get on my show. So I'm like, okay, well, let's do a little research on him. And turns out that, again, making claims that they're a leading expert in whatever fitness thing, and they've invented exercises that are proven to be the best for fat burning, reverse aging, and all these other different claims. And I'm like, all right, here we go. And then I dig a little bit deeper into this person's website, and you get into the FAQs, and people ask like, how do you know your system? Oh my gosh, sorry, people are just not driving nicely today. One of the FAQ questions is like, oh, how do you know your system works? And he said he's living proof because he did it on himself. There's so many things wrong with that analogy. Just because you found something that worked for yourself doesn't mean it's going to work for everybody else. It's just like saying, hey, I started powerlifting and got really strong. That means every client I train is now going to go into powerlifting. Makes no sense. And there's so many fitness professionals, and for those for you who are listening, I am using air quotes, out there that claim that they're an expert in this, their system's the best, it's blah, 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 it's blah, blah, blah. And then there are people that will have the audacity to say that it works because it worked on myself, or research has shown to X, Y, and Z. And when they make that statement, they have no supporting research to actually back it up, right? They just create this language for the general population to be like, oh, yeah, that makes sense. That totally sounds right to me. I'm going to trust this person. When in reality, like, no, you shouldn't. And this thing bugs me so much because I see it all the time. Or like you see those Instagram trainers, again, air quotes, that just put on their handle that they're an online trainer, and because they look skinny and lean and healthy, people just assume, oh, because they're fit, that means they're good at what they do. No, that's not the case. I just want people to stay clear from people blowing smoke up your ass when it comes to fitness and health advice. It's just fucking terrible. Just terrible. All right. Now that I got that off my chest, long story short, I bring on quality guests on my show. I will never have mediocre people. And even if a guest that I really wanted, I started talking to, and it just didn't mesh or the info was shit, I would never post it. So there you go. Now the other thing, because 2019 is coming to a close, and I kind of promised everyone that I'm going to start kind of talking about a little bit more specifics when it comes to fitness and health, I wanted to kind of bring up this idea of most of the time when people are looking for specifically nutrition advice, they're thinking that they need to have something more difficult than they should. And 9 times out of 10, the most simplest things I give to people, they can't even complete. You know, the typical fat loss, weight loss client I get, they all want to lose weight. They all want to ramp up their nutrition. They all want to, ramp up their eating plan, and they feel like, they've been through the ringer so many times, they've done so many diets and X, Y, and Z. And then when they get to my door, when it comes to nutrition, I give them really, really simple things. So how my nutrition coaching actually works is I'll put a person through a 28-page intake form of a questionnaire asking really specific questions about their history of eating, their relationship with food, what, skills they have in the kitchen, what equipment they have in the kitchen. Like, it's a whole intake form that will paint me a beautiful picture of what we actually need to work on. And then when I give out homework, and if you don't know already, I coach everyone by habit-based nutrition. Some of the simplest things I give to someone who's done so many diets in their life is like the biggest struggle I've ever seen. Something as simple as, hey, I want you to drink 2 liters of water for this week. Or make it even simpler, for the next 2 weeks. You know how many people actually get a perfect, if you want to call it a score, every single day of drinking 2 liters of water? Not many. I've seen it twice in my coaching career where people just pick it up in the snap of a finger, People always expect that they have to do this really, really hard thing in order to see success in their fitness and health. So if I get someone that's done all these different diets and they think they have a grasp of what it takes, and then I give them something as simple as, I want you to drink 2 liters of water for the next 2 weeks every single day. That's the only thing I want you to worry about. And then they can't do it. And then they're asking me questions. So how many grams of sugar am I allowed to have? I'm like, why are you asking me that right now? when you can't even figure out how to consume 2 liters of water a day, right? People are always skipping steps. Like, stop skipping steps. It's like getting a Lego set and then you just skip pages 5 to 13 because you feel like you can just figure it out and it'll just come easy. Like, no. All this tells me is that all these years that I've been coaching people, they latch on stuff that are more complicated and more difficult than they're used to and they're ready for. And when they go on these protocols of harsh diets or things like intermittent fasting, keto, whatever it may be, they don't learn anything from there. They don't learn any like life skills. You know, this goes back again to my whole like theme of this year of bigger picture stuff. If you don't have life skills, you won't get that far in life. You know, I would almost go as like you doing your own research of how to do intermittent fasting or macro counting or whatever is like you getting a formal education, but that formal education doesn't translate to what you're supposed to do in everyday life when dealing with an asshole of a boss at work. It doesn't mesh. You know, there are some similarities of what you can learn in formal education in the real world when dealing with an asshole, but it usually doesn't really work, right? So my approach to nutrition is being really simple and getting people really good at that, because when you have that base, that core, any other difficult nutrition protocol you want to try out there will become easy. You know, like on average, the people that I've had for nutrition coaching, it takes at least a good 3 months before they get into a rhythm, right? And I'm really upfront, like a lot of people when they start coaching, they're like so motivated, they're so excited, but with all that motivation and excitement, it can only take you so far. You like have to put in the work. Like, I don't know how much more I can keep saying this, like put in the work and wait. You know, like to get anything in life, it takes effort and time. I don't know why people have this illusion that 3 weeks, 4 weeks is what's going to take to undo decades of, you know, terrible eating patterns, terrible sleep patterns, terrible, you know, drinking patterns of not drinking water and just drinking coffee. Like, these are some real things that I've seen. You know, you're not going to fix everything in your life in an 8-week program. This is why I coach people minimum of 6 months. Like, it takes time to break down walls and barriers. Like, people need to get it through their head. So now going into the, you know, end of 2019, like next week is December. Like, how fucking crazy is that? You need to remember there's going to be a lot of festivities when it comes to Christmas and things like that. And yeah, go ahead and indulge, but know that December is such a wash that you're not going to see, you know, your goals any closer. You know, maybe throwing in an extra workout, throwing in an extra walk, throwing in some extra activity to balance the consumption of cookies and alcohol and dinners and parties you're going to have, right? Be realistic with yourself. Start looking yourself in the mirror and really figure out what's really important in your life. And maybe it's time to look at going back to the basics and really hammering it out, that it's so easy to drink 2 liters of water, eat your vegetables, and eat protein. Like, it's that simple, but it takes time to be actually successful at it. So I'm going to finish there because I can ramble about this forever. But thank you for listening to me. Let's fucking crush this week. You guys are amazing. Thank you for always supporting me. You guys are awesome. Until next time, you guys.